I now call on Deputy Richard Boyd Barrett, and I think everybody realises that we're trying to get everybody in and endeavouring to do that.
I will indeed, Last Count Corla. Can I start by commending Deputy Kenny for his fantastic work on this, and I think we should mention his back office team who've put a lot of work into it, and I'm very proud of Gino and proud of the fact that we're here to do something, I believe, that will benefit a lot of people and alleviate the suffering that they are going through. I'd also like to thank the other political parties who have facilitated taking this bill, and those who've indicated they're willing to support it, or at least not oppose it and allow it go to the next stage. I'd like to acknowledge the Minister who has, and his office, who have engaged with Deputy Kenny and more recently with myself as well to discuss this, and in a genuine way with a view to trying to get agreement across the House about how we can progress this. However sceptical we all might be, or I might be sometimes, about the so-called new politics, I think this is an example of the new politics functioning in a very progressive way. The biggest thanks have to go to the people in the gallery, and particularly people like Vera Toomey, who have fought because of the suffering that they have to endure, and their determination, in Vera's case, to get medicine for her daughter that can alleviate the suffering of Eva. And frankly, I think if this bill does eventually, with whatever changes has to get through, I think we should probably call it Eva's bill in the end, out of a tribute to Vera and the love of a mother for her daughter, because that's what this is about. And I want to say to Deputy Harty, and I take seriously and I respect the differences of opinion people may have, the concerns around this bill, but the thing that has to override everything, it seems to me, is if we can do something to help people like Eva and tens of thousands of other people who are suffering, who are ill, and for whom medicinal cannabis can alleviate that suffering. That has to be the priority, and it has to override absolutely everything else. And I want to assure Deputy Harty that that is the intention of this bill. This is not an attempt to do something by the back door. We do have different views on the wider question of decriminalisation of marijuana, of the question of recreational use, and so on. And we make no bones about saying that on another day, that is a debate we want to have. We've had it before with Ming Flanagan's bill, and I was on Ming's side on that. I want to commend Ming, obviously, for all of the work he's done. But that is not the intention of this bill. And we've indicated clearly, and this is why the government have agreed to let it go to the next stage, is that we are willing to work with the government and with the other parties to amend this bill. There may be debates and disputes about how best to do that, and I'll get on to some of the issues that have been raised, and we don't fully agree with some of the government's concerns and some of the other concerns raised, but nonetheless, if there's agreement that at the end of this process that we are going to make medicinal cannabis available to anybody for whom it could alleviate their suffering and their illness, we have a duty and obligation to do that. And it was that drove us, the inspiration of Vera and others, and our determination to have the legislative clock ticking, so that it has to happen. That's not to say there isn't a lot of work, and Gino and people before profit would be the first to admit we're not perfect legislators. There's issues that have to be dealt with, but we want it to happen for the sake of the people who will benefit from it. So I would add to the appeal of Deputy O'Brien for Deputy Harty not to cause a division on this, and let's work on it and make it the best legislation it can be, because it does seem, notwithstanding his differences on it, that he shares the objective that we all seem to share, that medicinal cannabis should be available for those who desperately need it. All of the points have been made about the range of different sufferers of different illnesses, that there is either very, very substantial evidence that cannabis-based products can assist them in their suffering, or significant evidence that needs to be researched more, undoubtedly. But where there's considerable evidence or experiential evidence, anecdotal evidence and so on, that a wide range of illnesses can be alleviated, the suffering and the pain involved in those can be alleviated as a result of medicinal cannabis products. And that, it seems to me, is something that we should not be in any way conservative about trying to explore. And I know the Minister has expressed concerns about, for example, the Research Institute, and we're quite willing, if it's a question of that being an obstacle to getting to this to the next stage, we're quite willing to take it out. But we will say we think the idea of further research in this area is something we should all want to happen, even if it's not part of this bill. If there's even the slightest chance that some of the other conditions, where we don't have all the evidence yet, but where there's significant evidence, with Parkinson's, with neurological disorders and so on, that it could make a difference, then we have an obligation, it seems to me, to go and research that stuff. And if that can all be rolled in to the what are they called again? The HPRA. We're absolutely open to that, because the main thing is to get it through. But I would say, and this is a difference of opinion, but we can work that out at committee stage, that I think the stigma that has been attached to cannabis has actually prevented us from exploring some of these benefits, and it shouldn't. Because the truth is, any concerns that you might have about the possible adverse of cannabis can be said to be, there are multiple concerns about all sorts of other drugs that are already legally available. And as Deputy Kenny said, there is no known instance of fatal overdoses from cannabis-based products or from cannabis use. That cannot be said about almost any other drug or a whole range of other drugs that are legally available, that you could quite easily overdose on them, abuse them, where the possibility of addiction is far, far greater than there is any evidence to suggest with cannabis-based products. So those anxieties, and it's not to say there can't be or aren't side effects, some of which we need to look at and be concerned about, but really there is no evidence whatsoever that any of the things you might say about cannabis in that regard wouldn't actually lead you to say, well, there's a whole range of other drugs that shouldn't be available either, that are available, and where their regulated provision is accommodated already. So we think we need to get rid of the stigma, because the prize, if you like, of alleviating a wide range of illnesses and suffering is such a big prize that we have to go to the nth degree if we can do that. And indeed, there's considerable evidence that it would replace drugs that are already being dispensed by the health system, which are more damaging, more dangerous. And I'll just conclude on this last count, Corla, but I was just referring a very good article people should read in the Irish Times today, where a Canadian-based study has shown that almost 500 medicinal marijuana patient surveys reported 80% of those surveyed successfully substituted cannabis for prescription drugs in the treatment of pain-related conditions. In other words, cannabis has become a more beneficial, less dangerous replacement for drugs that have worse side effects. So I think for that reason we should progress this bill as quickly as possible and not be too frightened of doing so.
Right.